Hello, I was watching a video with Law and Crime Network YouTube channel. I put a link to it. They're speaking about New England serial killers or a New England serial killer, but there are more than one. There's a serial killer reportedly convicted of it, associated with his reported body dumping spot, is increasingly involved with more murders and body dumping spots, with names involved with Weathersfield Police that picked conversations with me being at the police station when I was a kid, and then as an adult when I caught them too, forcing a since proven child abuser leader of the kids. Increasingly, they have collusions with him then, forcing it with more then and now, and with other families involved with child abusers, leaders of kids years apart. These are also families with the roles with foreign and domestic intelligence at locations at or next to the networks. So the police forms are offensively incapable of being communicated with. They have collusions with too many natures and methods of crimes that we can discern. WFSB also faked conversations with me with themselves and with others, and they changed and faked what I spoke with about with my family members. And they use crime methods to make other pretended communicated by people, all kinds of uses of their difference that they can't defend and afford to have with nature and what our founders themselves communicated. For example, about how a breaching method reassigned. What nature communicates with our differences, black pupils, white divides, the same color eyes, different color eyes at the same time. A different individual species body made up of a whole bunch of individual different bodies. Nature is showing us the body of its difference, generating totally different species bodies, each made up of a whole bunch of individual bodies. So we can discern there is one identity of value progression that is generating things this way as relativity / hyperrelativity. We have black pupils, whites of eyes, therefore there is relativity because other species bodies have two eyes also. And we are shown this body of value progression that we didn't invent and they didn't invent. Science shows us the needs for the scientific value to name it. This is where the needs to name God came from, not some crazy faith up front first. Now they have to decipher. That's the only reason religions lasted. Because they're about decipher. But everyone has that pretended debatable because everyone has them right out of sequence too. For example, the beginning of the Old Testament says, only depend right here, where the names of the people, the sciences will come together. And the part that comes before it, which is before even the part with the tree of life and tree of knowledge of good and evil in the beginning of the Old Testament. It comes before that part in the beginning of it. It says only depend right here. The Quran also comes to the part that says all that matters. For the translation I read of it, is if someone's honest, are they going to refer to that distinct identity of simultaneous nature, so to speak, as Allah or not, as a scientific value? Are they going to be honest with it or not? That's all that matters. And it tells the people that of Islam who believe that that's the name that they should call it for a scientific value, to love whoever doesn't want to call it that or doesn't believe they should call it that. All they have to do is be honest about it. It even qualifies it by directing the individual not to pray in a mosque for the slightest reason. Doesn't tell them all they have to do to be a good Muslim is to not eat pork. See, this preaching method knew everyone would be a fake with the identity of the sciences shared as collusions /s. So when counters to themselves were people also collusions with the breaching method, they would use their difference and value those differences with others. Not even right where no one values it too. And that's the outcome, though, to hide behind and through by the hyperforeign breaching method. A hyperforeign breaching method knew that nature would demonstrate to itself, to individuals A through Z, at countries A through Z. There's a human fact human nature breaching method involved with the locations, areas, and states, and showing demonstrations of it. But so instead, it forced church to persuade only permitted roles and sustained with those demonstrations as titles, things, jobs that were reliant upon, directed, forced to blame other things, others, ourselves, those nature's demonstrations, like with Black pupils, whites of eyes. That's one of the things this was about. It was about this singular breaching method that had sickly, distinctly northern colonies and southern colonies roles with slavery. And one can't understand that unless they understand the breaching method with facts against Native Americans first. And then coupled with the founders behind James Madison, as James Madison, his plan. And then the colonists and the presidents. Presidents, chiefs are still tortured, extorted, fact, human nature, enslaved, while the people, the other leaders of the countries are too. Ugh. I figured out how they could all be so evil. To state collusions or not to fathom the collusions they have. Forced, tricked, hardened, persuaded to be self-valued. Forcing replaced the legitimacy of any voice that wants to speak properly at last to know about why, how, and how. A fact, human nature breaching method reassigned, with nature communicates with Black pupils, whites of eyes, with differences, with nature communicates about the value of the economic systems, the jobs behind it, what they call security, what they call power, what they call weakness. Little kids in New York City are shown by nature itself, given means stronger than the identities of the people, the scientists, to discern. They're being used as within as abridged systems. We're supposed to get the Constitution unabridged. We're supposed to train the little kids how to fight with the fakes, as both Republican, Democrat, and exceptions, because there's a certain type of victim / hyper victim who came through campuses A through Z, sickly, distinctly communicating and having communicated other for our founders than they communicated. These are identities of jobs that want to say, oh, there's only one killer. And sometimes we get it right. They have collusions with all kinds of methods and natures of predicate acts with facts. A bunch of state police, the F.B.I. and other agencies, born in domestic military, their roles with all these other countries on off the campuses. They have predicate acts with facts methods there. Increasingly, people in the Britain Superior Court, and at the court, I meant by add too, but next to Central Connecticut State University in the Britain, Connecticut. People with the court have been planting evidences next to campuses intercities. And those people are timed collusion /S with murders years apart and ones around the same time intercities, as ones involved with them with organized crimes with the person of the proven serial killer, the reported proven serial killer. Also collusions with his captors and their roles with organized crimes, with child abusers, leaders of the kids years apart. And when they forced before it was caught anyway, then they pretend to be against such. They've been collusion /S with people on off the state corrections offices, judicial branch offices, also next to the state capitol. At the difference of guilt, the intelligence at the networks are next to them. See, these are people that are reliant upon, that's our job. Listen to what I said. They faked conversations with me at the Wethersfield police station when I was a kid and I was an adult. I never had a word of conversation in my life with the older Mendez police brother. And one of them is involved. They're the family. I don't know where they live. I know there's one in West Hartford next to, associated with a Christina Sioka, involved with people from Miami and Hartford Hospital with sexual and medical offenders of kids, overt criminal enterprises, private ones. And the only counters allowed to types of crimes as collusion /S with people with the borders too. The border countries, other countries, the Saudi attackers themselves used remotely by a hyperforeign. Relative to the readings of the Old Testament and of the Quran, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought. And they want to, this is a scholar on it. Guys are reading it out of sequence while tactically delusions raw. And this is important because it's not you guys are replacing what our founders communicated. You guys can't speak on the principles of American history because there have been all kinds of natures and methods of organized crimes. So one of the people they reported might have been killed, or they reported was killed, maybe by a serial killer. They said that she was reportedly a paranoid schizophrenic. A number of foreign and domestic medical families and their kids have organized crimes, putting fake transcripts and databases together, using their own differences to hide behind and through, to keep their rules with everything going before courts. And that comes before them in life with syntax used to hide what actually their value is recorded as, which is criminal insidiousness natures of positive treatments, negative treatments, self-value /S of that, sickly distinctly, but non-distinctly too, at each age and nature of campus. You guys have and have had other communicated for our founders than they left to classify to be communicated for themselves. So the Wethersfield police and the FBI are recorded involved with wire and mail crime methods where they fake methods, plural. One of them is them faking phone transcripts. As times, collusions with the rules with the difference of that or their crimes with digital crimes. And a fake letter at Trinity College with some of the people involved with the bordering states of the bordering countries and the bordering countries involved together. And with interreligious spots. And name the difference of the guilt at or next to the campuses with predicate acts. And whole predicate acts methods recorded here. Black pupils, white survives, and replacing that is about a predicate acts with facts method. It's about torture, extortion, and slavery that we were supposed to address, honestly. And part of the reason that no one will allow people honest to correct everyone is because it is how I'm bringing up your delusions too, because you guys have delusions and criminally foreign influence, fact, nature, quality aspects in nature regarding your principles with syntax treatments, fact, nature, quality aspects in nature with your convictions regarding American history, the principles of history. If you don't understand how and why James Madison, his plan to counter, extort, and force everyone to break the rules of overt criminal enterprises and private ones, terrorists, not just the international companies, the crazy countries individually grouped together still. Voices for Humanity, as through and as systems tactical military, from the one that is generating totally different species bodies. So we could have a whole bunch of individual bodies so we could discern its individual identity of value progression to an extent, which comes with its complete identity of relationship to itself and the only increasing value of that. Here, or that value is forced away from here as forced space nature transfer, as Leith of Hyades had more probably been defined by the ancient pantheism, more probably having been about this individual identity of value progression that is not our species body, is not the other species body. It is, we are all distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous. For this further distinct identity of simultaneous nature, for science. People use pretended free speech examples to pretend things that are debatable that are not, while self-valuing the principal treatments that they could only get away with by self-valuing the campuses having been breached. Not one has teached. So please, Sandy Hook campuses also have Sandy Hook Promise involved with syntax that was confessed years before the Sandy Hook killings and before and after the World Trade Center attack, with people involved with a bunch of murders and untimely deaths, and that were connected, and as the people that brought up, and people and the places tied to themselves that brought up the principal child abuser to me first. I recorded them forcing that using digital and wire crime action methods, state police associated with FBI, foreign and domestic, Navy, involved with the military, Air Force, some military police families, Collusion/S with the same house involved with wire crimes and methods with the police departments, plural. Falsified police department. Falsified police reports, collusion/S. Collusions with them switching names into branch. Collusions with names on all sides of criminal and civil cases. The news at the same time. The interbranch names, the conjunctions to them, their family members, including the interbranch the intelligence tied to them. Kept hiding the name, same sequence shifts. The same federal evidence crimes. The same organized crimes, collusion/S. And they want to speak about truth or lies. In other words, the people of New York City have excuses. Then they want to go have principle treatment. They want to define difference through contrast, Republican or Democrat or social. Everyone's used to sense too. Sense and sensibilities, fact-driven, those natures of logic, those fact-driven nature, quality aspects, nature, convictions with it, can't defend that and afford to be, let alone to protract what our founders communicated about this. They left it classified why and how we don't entertain markets positions as is. Why and how we don't address the tariffs without addressing love and reciprocity and the fake news, which is an understatement because he knows that there are many countries involved with them and this locations next to them, the intelligence next to the news locations, and the exceptions like public television. Note how there's a book depository that was associated with the reported murder of our president, assassination of one of our presidents. You guys don't have the capacity of honesty or integrity of reason. You guys are delusions wrought with psychiatry. Collusion/S too. Like they torture prisoners and pretend it's about corrections dishonestly. They have rules with foreign and domestic medical families at the campuses, intercities and intra-cities, and with the security tied to them, involved with wire crime acts and methods, involved with crime acts methods where people are telling people behind others behind their back to lie, to put sequence shifts, faked and changed communications, and that weren't at all, to do little magic tricks to make it look like other, to lie about their motivations. The same ones increasingly involved with various natures of organized crime, bodies as groups. There's a girl reportedly dragged to her death from next to Harvard Hospital. I don't know her name. I remember though. She was demonstrated to me. She's involved with people at Harvard Hospital, and where she was dropped off too with with a Mike Violet and a Mark Violet and their mother, their family, and other people in their family. I don't know if they have a sister. I don't know if she's related to her. They try to make a fake exception of me knowing her, and Andrea Violet, at the corner of Elm Street and Rocky Hill. At the corners of Elm Street and Rocky Hill and Weathersfield are increasingly people collusion/S with predicate access databases and with educators behind other kids' backs. And their roles at and between campuses, and they don't even know the kids. They don't even have campuses with classes with them, and they consciously recorded all exceptions. They use the exceptions, criminally, foreign influence, tactical illusions, raw too, for a method that keeps them incapable of affording to have discerned how nature uses exceptions and exception nature, distinctly from all other identities of volume, while not. It is the other species. It is why and how there are species. It is why and how we have quality aspects in nature distinct from other species bodies, but also non-distinct and simultaneous. Again, but for this further identity of simultaneous nature. Now, if someone wants to disagree, they have the right, but not to fake things so they can pretend their argument about it is legitimate, and then fake conversations with me about it so they could do that. They faked conversation with me about religion at Harvard Hospital. They put fake transcripts. They do all kinds of things and the opposite things too, because they have groups doing this, as their roles with multiple police forms. One forensics increasingly has collusions with names next to campuses with sexual and medical offenders of kids and people next to body dumping spots in elderly homes at the same time as their sources time collusions with them. People with the name O'Neill involved with the World Trade Center attack, with Saudis with Wethersfield Police, State Police, Whiting Forensics. Joshua Julia, Facebook people have roles personally and professionally in their ad placements. People have associated with the ad placements. The difference of the guilt of the intelligence names at the networks or next to them. Forgiveness is because all that's an outcome /S that is maintained by what had people from Russia, America, Ukraine, before America's founders were born, before other modern countries' founders were born. Through the founding of modern countries, there was a hyperforeign breaching method entrenched. For example, in America, northern colonies and southern colonies, and roles with it sickly distinctly, but also sickly non-distinctly, northern colonies and southern colonies, even with slavery, even against what is native by nature itself communicated, replacing that in roles, otherwise that body roles sensing, otherwise sensed, including if not having not sensed for the breaching method, because it had all rolls with it so long they can't even discern the breaching method now. They don't know how to speak about why and how. They have to do something about the weapons and the natures of industries. They can't do it properly because our founders communicated to us for us to address what was sickly non-distinctly northern colonies and southern colonies too. Rolls with that. So therefore, the hyperforeign, not just don't let it hide behind through people blaming criminal foreign influences until they were and are real more and more counters to what's blaming them wrong in the first place too. Because there's a breaching method that keeps names A through Z, blaming other things, others, ourselves, rather than blaming the breaching method that nature itself shows us is one of the things, all those crazy laws that were forced on everyone for the torture, extortion, slavery method. What they were all about, sickly distinctly, but also non-distinctly. They were all about a human fact, treatment, nature, torture, extortion, slavery method, a method of using everyone from abroad through their own people, but by and as a hyperforeign also involved there. It has all the power and all the might in the world only because people force, trick, hurt, and persuade other things, others, ourselves to be blamed for things that it caused and keeps, like slavery. You guys have self-value collusions framing our founders for that, using all truths that appear to be true about that. Oh, but that's what's recorded. Our founders left declassified. Why and how no one had free speech. Everyone was fact, human nature, tortured, extorted, and enslaved. And James Madison came up with the plan of forcing everyone to break the rules and be all trouble at once and have no means to defend themselves. But the way they arranged. But they still had the breaching method. Everyone rolls with it, measuring and maintaining. So they had to leave with slavery entrenched northern and southern colonies and southern colonies, even slavery. They had to leave what they really wanted and needed to communicate for and as. There are proofs as Native Americans. If Native Americans' resistance, nature itself shows us this too. But there are proofs that Native Americans helped were part of that unity behind James Madison, even though we were directed to understand the only founder that we know the name of specifically is James Madison. So they wouldn't play, but that's debatable. In other words, it's not debatable. George Washington wasn't our founder. George Washington was extorted. We were directed to be honest about this, and to be honest about how they all had to lie about or pretend they were complaining against the T-tax, make up other motivations. The real motivations was the counter extortion. They were forced to help James Madison's plan. You don't pretend it's about a T-tax while you know slavery was entrenched. Think about what they communicated to the students, all of them. In other words, then you guys want to be respected. You guys have, in other words, that's why they're attacked too. Well, but we're attacked. Oh, I know. because you guys are all forcing collusion self-I with the hyper-foreign. They use their own differences into branch. Oh, I'm black, I'm this, I'm that, you know what? They don't know how to speak. Our founders communicated to not to entertain, show how the breaching method employed those differences. Tend to be entertained now. It only allowed our campuses self-value roles, replacing what was declassified, replacing it anyway, pretending it's debatable by using what they but look, this is what they said. Get down. Look what was entrenched. Ask yourself, why is there a witch trials place next to Webb House, now renamed Webb Stevens Museum? And why do they not have that understood about these founding locations? It was James Madison's counter-extortion involved with them. Prepare, black pupils. So multiple Connecticut police departments have people involved, planting evidence on all sides of my house from other areas. And their rules will all relative falsified police reports and police confessions over the phones, but they're changing and faking and hiding actual phone transcripts and actually digitally recorded. They have all kinds of collusions /S with women, judges, and prosecutors and people that work for the board of courts, all ages and natures of their family members too, with foreign and domestic military, planting evidences of all natures, including their roles with sexual and medical offenders of kids, women judges, all through their roles with other predicate methods, self-value, as the way the breaching method showed them to speak about crimes. Well, they are still collusion /S with predicate acts with facts methods /S. For example, I'm not even a lawyer, not a journalist, their family members, their educators, all kinds of organized crimes associated with them. In other words, get them on paper, one name and sequence. Watch what I caught them doing with the roads and routes, and name the difference of the guilt of the people make convictions at the networks or next to them as identities of law and private tied to them. Systems, all tactical ulterior from the humanity system. We're going to bring our voice and the Constitution on a bridge together. We're not going to play games here. In other words, so get them on paper too. They're involved with too many methods and natures of extortion, torture, factory nature slavery, therefore physical slavery. We're going to address what built the suburbs tactically denatured and who denies it, how they got away with so long for pretending other. While nature itself shows their logic has inherent to it, active to it, and progressive to it, demonstration /S of the same thing, and of those relative delusions. That the names of the people of sciences, including of reason experts, I'm not a doctor, I'll delineate your delusions from their criminally foreign influence, fact, nature, quality aspects in nature, and collusions with replacing what our founders communicate. They have all kinds of collusions with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, also with the names of the businesses and houses next to the medical campuses and fire campuses. Collusions. The fire campuses run into Harvard Hospital. They ran, in other words, Harvard Hospital has all kind of wire, mail crime, drug crime, medicine crime, legal crimes, all kinds of identity theft, fraud, slanders, the difference of their guilt or the intelligence next to them through time. Their roles also with those same names, with the names next to the campuses, forced, tricked, or persuaded to collusions. People with the name, people next to on all sides of the community center will tell you they were forced, tricked, and persuaded to collusions with names on up the state of Connecticut corrections offices and judicial branch offices, with people named Collo and Demoro and tied to them, involved with predicate acts with Wethersfield police. And further, these people with child abusers, the years of the kids, years apart, first forest, has something to do with their planting evidences and then wanting to go before courts after collusions with them with predicate acts. And their educators, involved increasingly with foreign and domestic military, and the names involved with the World Trade Center attack interstates and intercities and intercampuses. They use a crime method where a breaching method showed them how to value their job and hide the things of like former director of the F.B.I, Robert Luskin, no matter what, and people of hierarchy, because it uses and used them remotely. And it knew that nature would demonstrate that. So some of the things that they have learned at Country A through Z as the names of the people of sciences, they learned it through a breaching method. That's why we need to communicate out here online legitimately. They've been changing and faking digital evidences in the Britain Superior Court, Harper Courts, and Connecticut's District Court, and the family and intimate ties. Also, all along Hangdog Lane and Two Rod Highway are names that were court confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They have the names. They are the names involved next to Fox Connecticut News, and that Fox Connecticut News with the FBI director and some judges and prosecutors involved with relative body dumping spots and poisonings, and including giving people salmonella through a restaurant involved with a Joe Dennis and John Dennis and Rick Sanfaglione confessions, and people with the name Spada too have roles with probate court judges who have shared extended family members, like a Delafair family is involved with a bunch of people that planted evidences on my street. I never saw a Delafair family on my street in my life. I only know two of the brothers' names. They're involved all along roads and routes through time with people that have been putting fake things in databases with kids they don't even have in classes with and pretending other behind their backs. And I was like made to feel bad, and that's why I went on to the prom with Ray Collo. They try to make it look like I'm tied to him, and the others involved with UConn, with Harper, and with houses and businesses next to Harvard Hospital, involved with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and relative murders intercities. They know they had confessions they affected to me, brought them up, like the FBI director and the courts and the family members and intimate ties before and after the World Trade Center attack. Before the World Trade Center attack, Harper's courts, families, and intimate ties, and foreign and domestic military people involved, also with Dean Judd and his kids and other campuses and ones next to them, like a fire campus next to a house right next with a backyard on another campus with Eric Burgess, and also that park in West Hartford has near West Farms Mall, and people at West Farms Mall increasingly collusion/S with people from Weathersfield and the state judicial branch offices and corrections offices, and all along Route 3 in conjunctions to it and to that, like the state judicial branch offices. Those are also people with Alina's Pizza and people next to Park Street campuses involved with sexual and medical offenders of kids, differences, rackets with the foreign and domestic military together. There is DACA, the DACA program. There are proofs that has something to do with the intelligence community, that way and how they share roles together, and with psychiatry, criminally, all kinds of medicines, crimes, and delusions with them, and organized crimes. And that is used to use their natures themselves remotely, their fact, human nature, quality aspects of nature, relative to how they had the audacity to get in the way when anyone tried to use black people's white lives for evidence, for example. They had the audacity to use the value of lawyers, which is not supposed to be valued for. Originally, still, all sides of criminal civil cases, the lawyers, conjunctions to them. The news has collusions hyper additionally with them too, like Trantola, with Interbranch refusing to identify themselves legitimately. A bunch of people tied to a Trantola with wire and mail crimes, identity theft, fraud, slanders, preventing people's simple sentences, changing and faking what they say into pretended allegations, or no, pretended conspiracy theory. And even though they know it's recorded, proven, there's a principal child abuser involved with Trantola and WFSB with identity theft, fraud, slanders, all along with people all along Route 3. They've been making fake ties to me, fake motivations for it, with the courts forging and switching names. These are also names next to the World Trade Center, including a court next to it, Collusions/S. These are also names changing the validity of what people say on social media, lying about what they think. Oh, because we wanted to go in our office because that's our job, and we're not the profilers. It's no. I mean, you guys are victims. That, in other words, anyone would be doing that job, and someone has to do it. But you guys aren't allowed to do it right. But you guys are also not allowing it to be done right. You guys have mandated law. You're not supposed to. I want a response for the principal child abuser's confessions to me. what I recorded him doing, and how I recorded them also with forensics names changing and faking what's recorded. And what are they doing increasingly with mayors and people tied to mayors, putting fake ties and fake natures of ties to me and fake motivations for it. As people also increasingly involved with a whole bunch of murders we're going to examine, even if any or all of them were made up. A bunch of reporters and people involved with all kinds of crimes at the time and the counters to it as collusions that have roles with the murder reportedly and confessed, even if it was made up with the murder of Greg Kyler, and their roles with other body dumping spots and people associated with John Scott and other people with the boxing gyms in Connecticut that have roles preventing me a voice offensively by repeating fake things with people with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, also involved with the campuses intercities, like Venus Pizza has his lawyer involved with them too, with foreign and domestic medical families, and roles with badges once, and tactically delusions raw, but all kinds of natures of organized crimes, and roles with things that can't be defended and then afford to be, let alone to protract short words of anyone proper with convictions regarding what nature shows us. Like with black people's rights of eyes. This is part of the reason that this has stayed left out. The names of the jobs and the titles that have been valued as currently foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. They don't know how to speak. Or Whisper Creek. Please, Massachusetts State Police. Please get them on paper, one name and sequence. Harvard Hospital has a girl who was dragged to her death, reportedly who was dragged to her death, and where she was dropped off is involved with people with a Violet family, with UConn, and with Central Connecticut State University in Britain, and with Harvard Hospital and the names next to it, involved with that, with through other natures of organized crime acts and roles they have. Mark Violet also has rules with families associated with a religious spot on Route 3. And he said it was with his neighbors at a corner of a street, no house. I don't know their names. They're increasingly people tied to them. And their roles with a Perone family and a Kerr family and people with the name Carone. A bunch of people, as people from Wethersfield involved with former mayors, and people involved intercities planting evidences, also on off Central Connecticut State University, involved with all kinds of organized crimes, and the people involved with wire crimes and falsified police reports with the Wethersfield police that also attached me to fake conversations with themselves and fake me being there with them as a kid and then as an adult. And they're increasingly involved with people with body dumping spots and relatives, the serial killer. Their extended family members also had collusion/S with that, and people tied to them with past predicate acts, sequential fake motivations, planting and screening. The Violet family also has rules with people from Korea, and their roles at and next to the state capitol, acting so others can film illusions. A Casper family is also by people from Harvard Hospital, involved with their patients and criminals, and with intelligence families near me, involved with sexual and medical offenders of kids. And I only have love for everyone. That's why we're going to get them on paper, one name and sequence, the Wethersfield police and the courts involved through time with them, with untimely deaths too, with this Robert Rodriguez, and his roles too with the same religious spot, and people in places associated with a Mike Roberts, increasingly collusion/us with them, inter and intrust cities. A Daryl Chandler tried to put fake things in, fake ties, fake nature ties to me. It's like I have a picture of him near me. They're trying to film things. In other words, they're incapable of dealing with any evidences properly. They're hiding such from Judge Napolitano because the police firms on a mass scale, they change and fake and hide evidences. They are incapable of defending their jobs as trained to by the breaching method. And so they have to value themselves collusions with the same names. They have to call names like the other countries so they could, because they rely upon contrast to defend their principal treatments, because they are tactically ulterior from nature's, and where nature correlates with George James Madison's principal treatments. They are forced to be replaced even though they are known. Get them on paper, one name and sequence at the branch. and writing forensics. They have a physical law further involved with others with Facebook too, with sexual and medical offenders, New Britain Superior Court, as once before and after the World Trade Center attack, with the confessions and requests for help by Eric Burgess, bunch of fakes who made confessions about how they wanted me to hide lights to their girlfriend. I'm not even in the conversation with them about it, and they're making all these confessions. These are increasingly people tied to other child abusers, leaders of kids, and their roles with prosecutors and judges and their family members intercities, as ones increasingly at the corrections and judicial offices too. But those are ones increasingly. Lena's Pizza has roles with people next to the houses and the schools involved with organized crimes, identity theft, fraud, things, and roles with differences. Their own sense and sensibilities are kept a certain type of victim / hyper victim because they're used weaponized and pretending other. They're incapable of speaking for difference until you guys follow mandate law. I'll show you how to fix the fake news too with the WF. So get the Wethersfield police on paper, one name in sequence, with writing forensics names too, please. The Connecticut State Police have roles with this. And with the same house / S involved with other, all kinds of murders and body double spots. And they had confirmed things on Facebook. An Enzo Pienza confirmed on Facebook. There's a detective Dylan and there are others involved at 2 Route Highway and where it runs into Hangdog Lane with a Dylan family and with people I never saw in my area, but people that used to live in my street, intelligence families involved with his neighbors in Wethersfield and his roles with the state judicial branch offices and houses and law and businesses or in conjunctions to it, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, falsified police reports, World Trade Center predicate acts with WFSB, their roles with the names next to the networks too. Not just the F.B.I. Director, Robert Luskin. Their roles next to the state capitol too. Collusions with mayors, their family members, etc. Their neighbors involved with body dumping spots in my 4th grade class, a South Civiello, increasingly involved with the state police and the FBI and courts involved with Eric Jensen and people on 2 Route Highway and Hangdog Lane. Recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed about planting evidences with them. Fake ties, fake nature ties. These people sought me out to demonstrate that their roles with my educators behind my back. People I don't even know too. As ones with these Mendez police faking falsified police reports. They have collusions with various natures of federal evidences, crimes, and child abuses with people all along Route 175. They plant the evidences fake type. I only saw them planting evidences together with a Justin Levinskis and an Eric Jensen, and they have 2 Carone brothers, and there's another Carone, and there are more people with the name Carone involved with them along Route 175 with people planting evidences tied to and as leaders of the kids, then and further involved with child abuses. There is a mother and daughter named O'Connor that are reportedly collusions, hiding and faking what I say, and making collusions with the Wethersfield police chief, sexual medical offenders of kids. Get them to respond to me. Don't be cowards, please. F.B.I. Director Robert Luskin has roles with a bunch of people named, like a bunch of people that confessed and recorded. Eric Klotz, he'll tell you. I don't know what he'll tell you. I barely know him. And like one of the only times I ever saw him was near, has something to do with the corner of Fair Lane Drive and Griswold Street. Also, I don't know if he knows Joshua Stryker. But other people involved with the child abusers confessed and recorded him involved with them with federal evidences crimes with the corner of Griswold Street and Fair Lane Drive. Also, a CM Baglione family non-verbally demonstrated they have collusions with that and with the campuses, putting fake things in databases and acting tied to it, with the Leahy family that fake transcripts in me, and with the Brian Silver and other prosecutors and judges involved with sexual medical offenders of kids, falsified police reports, identity theft, fraud, slanders, motive screenings with a whole bunch of different countries. Their roles with databases, criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions, raw. You're going to have them work with databases with computers further, give them screening, get me off the fake conversations with them get them on paper with the interbranch switching and forging names and the news fake conversation.